the channel, welcome back to the vlog, welcome to Boom in the Sky. We're still here in Fargo, North Dakota, again, West Fargo, North Dakota. We are at PGI in the convention center, just walking around, talking to some of the great vendors here, and I actually met this gentleman back in a few months ago, was it a few months ago? It was like March, April, at the Florida Pyrotechnics Art Guild. They had their 2F festival. So I was there and I met David Russell from Firelinx. It is an electronic firing system. It's really cool. In the field, they had some lights on their modules and their remotes. It's really cool. So I'm going to step off camera. But David, nice to be here. Thanks for joining us here on Boom in the Sky.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm going to step off and I'm going to ask David some questions. So, first off, David, thanks again for joining. Can you give everybody just a quick introduction about yourself and about Firelinx?
Lovely. I've been doing control systems and wireless control systems for about 40 years now. And back in 2005, my son was interviewed for one of the companies that made firing systems. And he told me about the switches and the batteries and the miles of cabling. And I'm saying, my God, that's stone knives and bearskins. Why don't they use wireless? And I realized a minute later that, okay, for pyro, wireless doesn't really work. So I went on, and about 2 weeks later, my brain told me, oh, you know, it could work. And that's what started the whole Firelinx system.
Very cool. So tell me about Firelinx. Give us a little background about Firelinx. Like, how does it work? What's the, and I'll pan into the products, but you know, give us a little background about Firelinx.
Okay. The main difficulty that what I saw with doing wireless and pyrotechnics is that it doesn't matter who makes the radio, wireless is fundamentally unreliable. And so when you're trying to shoot something at 1,000th of a second, the time that it takes for the radio to do the communication is simply difficult for us to deal with. So it occurred to me as a computer architect that the way to solve that is, instead of having a master controller that's trying to tell a slave what to do over a fundamentally unreliable network, if you change the architecture, then the firing module itself becomes the master controller. It's attached right to the E-matches the way it should be. Then we take the choreography, we download it to the firing module, and synchronize them, and then let them go. So we take the radio out of the critical path. We remove all of that latency and unreliability, and now the system just works.
Okay, great. Sounds great. And what sets you apart from others?
The architecture is the first thing. So we now have a way of getting around the failures in the radio. The second item is we have capacitor banks inside the firing modules, so that once those capacitors are charged, there's enough energy readily available to just fire everything. So we remove all of the restrictions. You can fire anything, anywhere, anytime. The third thing then is that wireless is still there, so we provide a 2-wire communications at the same time as the wire. So yeah, it's just the standard scab wire that every pyro uses to extend their E-matches. And what that allows you then is the kind of belt and suspenders safety, where if some event happens that interferes with the radios, then the wire picks it up. And if someone steps on your wire, which is also the real problem with wiring things, then the radio picks it up. So we have two kinds of reliability that are working together. The last thing that I think really sets us apart is that we understand radio. We have a wireless wizard that, you know, when you get there in the morning and you test your system, everything's fine, just like it is here right now. But then, you know, we get into the afternoon and evening and 3,000 people with cell phones move in. And then the wireless microphones turn on, and the wireless DMX, and the wireless speakers, and suddenly your radio spectrum is gone. And it doesn't work now. So what the wireless wizard does is it will scan the entire spectrum just before showtime and it will say, dude, your best bet right now is channel 3. Would you like me to change all of your modules' radios for you? Yes, please. Because otherwise you have to go out then and change everyone in the field. So this handles all of that for you. We've made the system to be for pyros.
That's awesome. And what advice would you give to someone who's new to fireworks, who's looking to get into a firing system?
It's as inexpensive as they come, essentially. It gives you the ability to grow. The two groups that we really are the most successful with are the guys that are just starting to move from hand firing into electrical firing, and then the groups that have used the cheaper, simpler, problematic systems who now want to get up and start competing with the professionals who are using like Fire One and Pyro Digital for choreograph shows or musical shows. They're more expensive, they're more difficult to run, and they take more computer power. And so we've always been built to deal with that level of the competition, if you will, in the space. So those are the two people that primarily are buying Firelinx systems.
So how many modules, you have one remote and you have multiple modules in the field, I'm assuming. Yeah. How many can you hold? Or how many can you connect to? What kind of shows can you do, etc.?
That's an excellent question. All right, so one thing you'll notice is that there are 3 digits in the identifier of every module. Every module has a unique ID. So you might name them 100, 200, 300, depending on what their position is, and then 301, 302, 303. But we can do up to 1,000 modules. So there's no restrictions there. The second thing is that we can fire strictly manual. So if you've got a really simple show, you don't even have to worry about doing a script. If you just want to fire 1 through 24 or 48 on, all you have to do is set it up and start hitting the firing button. But then we allow scripts. And the scripts can be very complex or very simple. It can be as simple as every time I push the button, it's going to fire 1, 2, 3, 10, whatever number of things you want. So then, the next time I push, it's going to do something different. Then we can fire SMPTE shows. Now, SMPTE is the standard time code control in the entertainment industry. What it allows the system to do is it tells the firing system what time the music is, which may not be the same thing as what time the computer is. So this forces the computer to match its time to the music time. That's what allows us to do these great pyro spectacular musical systems.
Okay, and in terms of modules, do you have different sizes or different queues, number of queues, 10, 20, 30, 50? How does it work?
Right. Currently, we basically have the 24 queue systems, but the command module is already set up to handle up to 64 per module. We also have an interesting change, and that's in your computer, there's a slot for if you have a graphics card or a sound card or something. So we've done the same thing in the firing modules. What you can do, and this is open source, is anybody can create a card that will go into the slot and do whatever they want it to do. So they can talk to the firing system. So you could, for example, put another 32 channels inside to make one module do 56. Or you could put an Arduino on it that could do anything, or a DMX controller. So those will be coming, but anybody can build them. It's an open source standard.
Okay. Now, a couple fun questions for you. I try to ask these questions. Do you have a favorite firework, consumer, whatever, or a favorite firework effect?
I have to say my absolute favorite is I have a picture of my arms around a 48-inch shell.
That is a massive shell.
It's a Volkswagen. So after that, I love willows, brocades, the gold. One of the things that we love doing in choreography is the gold song. And those are the ones that always get people amazed and can really generate emotion, especially when you bring in a song that triggers their emotions at the same time you're doing a sky full of gold. It's magical.
That's great. And where do your price points? You said people can get into this for an affordable price. What can you tell us about your price points? What you need? I'm assuming 2 things, right, to get started.
Okay, so simplest way to get started, you need a command module because we don't use the computer or anything else. It's all in your hands. So that's $299. And then the firing modules are currently $475 for PGI members, or if you want to get into one of the local pyro arts guilds, there's usually a discount. Today they're at 20% for PGI. So both of these together without the little LED lights would be $619 to get started.
And you mentioned you were talking about scripting. How do people script the show, or how do they set it up? So you obviously have to tell the module and the remote, fire this when?
Yes. Okay, so there are 2 methods. One of them is an application called Finale Fireworks 3D, and it's inexpensive, and it's actually meant for people who, just as a hobby, would like to do choreography and plan out shows. It will script them and give you a 3D rendering of your show that you can watch yourself, and then that would come into the command module. The other simple way to do it is an Excel spreadsheet. All it takes is what time is it, what module is it, and what channel is it. If you can put those down and then do your timing, it's ready to go.
So what advice would you give to people who are getting into this that either they're getting into it or they're upgrading from one of the early systems that they get to a Firelinx?
Right, the best thing to do is work. If you're just getting into it, what you want to do is find a local pyro, or especially a local pyro arts guild. Every state virtually has one. And you can go there, you can learn from the guys that have been doing it for a long time. You can build your own shells. You can really, you can find out who's shooting a show next week, and you can go be part of their crew. When I started Firelinx in 2005, I worked on shows for a year before I started the design. And then I put together a group of people that together had over 200 years of cumulative experience, and I said, teach me. And that's how the system got to be as useful as it is. So the same thing for anybody that wants to get there, whether they're currently doing backyard shows and, and basically, we have words for it, but basically, a lot of shows will play music and throw shit in the air. But what you want to do is a choreography is intended to take the audience on a journey. And you do that by the shells you choose and the music you choose, and you get it to flow from high to low to finale. And at each stage, the music triggers their emotions, and so does the fireworks. And if you can get that to play together, it's magical. So that's what the system will do for you, but you need to learn. So we have a lot of videos on our website. We're happy to work with people if they just want to learn how. And for us, it's a relationship. We're trying to be your friend in the pyro business. And we want to help you succeed.
I've been asking this question, is pyro musical or no musical? Which do you prefer?
Personally, I love musicals. And I've done both. And if you've got really good shells, like we've seen here at PGI, that can be sufficient. Watching competitions can be awesome. But if what you're trying to do is entertain, then the more ways that you can engage your audience, the more they're going to enjoy it, and the more they're going to come back and do it again.
That's great. And where do you think the industry or the electronic firing system industry is going? What's the next step?
We're getting pretty good at computers, but we're still fairly primitive as to communications. How do we get it out? How do we do 5 barges at the same time? How do we, make sure that we don't drop a shot? So there are new technologies coming online, between the 2.5 and 5 gigahertz spectrums. There are things that we can theoretically do even with satellite networks that are becoming more ubiquitous. So there's a lot that can be done. Cellular networks could get involved. Communications is always evolving, and we need to evolve with that. As far as actually sitting down and having the computer do it, we seem to have that figured out right now. But I'm always looking forward to the next surprise.
What's the range on a Firelinx system?
Range is one of those things that's like going to a used car salesman and having him tell you it's a great car. Okay, so a little bit of technical here. There's a number we're allowed to use for claiming range, and that comes from an equation that's called free air over ground. So I can say, for example, that I go 2 kilometers with this. If I had them up on towers, nowhere near anything else. In reality, all our radios are really fairly certain for the same. Range depends on the frequency that you're at and the things that are in the way. So at 900 megahertz, you can travel farther and you get more power, but you have more latency because of the way it works. At 2.4 gigahertz, anything bigger than about 5 inches can reflect and block the radio signal. So you have to watch for things that can shadow, but in general, about 600 meters is about as far as you would want to take it. Now, the other thing that most people don't understand is that when you put a module on the ground is actually absorbing 90% of the energy that's radiated out of the antenna. So even getting it up 8 inches off the ground can double your range. So there are tricks, and these are the things we try to teach people. But in general, not many people need to go more than 600 yards.
Tell me about the safety features of Firelinx.
Lovely. Okay, yes, safety is one of our prime concerns, partially because from 2005, when I first introduced the system, to 2011, we sold what we called our Gen 1. And it was considered the safest system in the industry at the time. In 2011, there was an accident at a theme park. And they called me to help them figure it out because of the safety of the system. And they called a guy named Glenn Burkett at Burkett Engineering because he provides all of the safety and show control systems for the theme parks. And they asked us to work together to find out why. And we did that, and they said, okay, if you guys can fix our system, we will buy it. And Glenn and I looked at each other and said, okay. So in 2011, we started working together. And from 2011 till just recently, we built systems exclusively for the theme parks. And they are very concerned about safety. So that got built into every piece. Now, over those 10 years, we made enough money off those theme park sales that we could then take all of that technology and put it into this low-cost package to provide that to the standard Pyro. Because, a standard Pyro doesn't want to pay $25,000 for a command module. So, in terms of that safety, there's several main things. One is encryption on the radios, not only the encryption that's in this radio system itself, but we encrypt on top of that. We call crew safe safety. What that means is when you go to do continuity testing to find out if you've wired things correctly, then usually there's only 5 or 6 components in that test circuit, and you're only one component away from firing something as opposed to testing something. We call that a single point of failure. We have no single points of failure in the Firelinx system. So the we had to do the analysis for the theme parks. And that analysis said that over a 20-year lifetime of a standard system, you could expect to accidentally fire a shell 7 times. To me, that's unacceptable. So we completely redesigned the way continuity testing works, and it is now 10 to the minus 9th power, 0.000000001 chance in 100 years of firing on continuity. So, basically then there's things like there are hardware-software interlocks, because software can just go off and jump wherever it wants, including right to a firing command. So we've built in hardware interlocks into that process so that if anything jumps out of sequence, it shuts down. There are about 5 or 6 different interlocks like that built into the system. It's all about safety.
And my last question is, where has the Firelinx system been used? Different shows, different theme parks. Where can people see the? Exactly.
Right now, it's fairly new. We've only been, basically coming out of COVID. We did very little last year, and now we're starting to do things. It was recently installed in a theme park in Beijing, a major theme park in Beijing. In a stunt show and in a nightly display show. We've been firing it with the Florida Pyro Arts Guild, so if they come down to any of those meets, they can usually see it. And we have probably a dozen users right now who are using it across the country, and we continue to support them, and we're here to add some more.
Okay, David, thank you very much for being here on Boom in the Sky. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming to the channel. Thanks for coming to the vlog. Thanks for coming to Boom in the Sky. I hope you guys like this video. Definitely check out Firelinx. Where can people find more info about Firelinx?
www.firelinx.com.
Excellent. Guys, check out Firelinx. I will link it in the description down below. But if you like this video, definitely smash that like button. Of course, drop a comment down below. Let me know, have you ever seen a Firelinx system being in use, or is it on your list of firing systems to check out? And of course, subscribe. We've got more stuff coming up right here on Boom in the Sky. But like I always say, make it beautiful and make it loud. Thanks, guys.